She handed me the wine with a smile, calling it a special vintage just for you. 3 days later, I was in the hospital fighting for my life. But what I discovered, and what I revealed at her baby shower, left the entire family speechless. I'm glad you're here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from so I can see how far my story has reached. I never imagined that at 70 years old, my own daughter-in-law would try to kill me. But standing in that hospital room, tubes running from my arms, doctors whispering about toxins in my bloodstream, I finally understood what I had become in my son's life. Not a mother, not family, just a burden that needed to be eliminated. My name is Margaret Ross, and 6 months ago, I was living what I thought was a peaceful retirement in my small craftsman house in Maplewood. My husband, Frank, had passed away 2 years prior, and my son, Daniel, was my only remaining family. He'd married a woman named Vanessa Chen 3 years ago, a sleek, ambitious pharmaceutical sales representative who always seemed to look right through me whenever we were in the same room. "Mom, we need to talk about your living situation," Daniel had said one evening when he and Vanessa came for their monthly visit. Monthly. That's what our relationship had been reduced to. One obligatory dinner every 4 weeks where Vanessa would check her phone constantly and Daniel would avoid my eyes. I set down my teacup carefully, already feeling my stomach tighten. "My living situation? I'm perfectly fine here, sweetheart. This is my home." Vanessa leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against my coffee table. "Margaret, you're 70 years old, living alone in a 2-story house. What if you fall? What if something happens?" "I'm healthy as a horse," I protested, looking to Daniel for support. "Tell her, Daniel. I had my checkup last month. Dr. Patterson said I'm in excellent shape for my age." My son wouldn't meet my eyes. "Mom, Vanessa has a point. We worry about you." "Then visit more often," I said quietly. "I'm not fragile. I don't need to be managed." Vanessa's smile was sharp. "We're not trying to manage you. We're trying to help. Actually, we have a solution that could work for everyone." She exchanged a look with Daniel that I couldn't quite read. "We're planning to expand our house, add a mother-in-law suite in the basement. You could live with us." "The basement?" My chest tightened at the thought. "That's very generous, but I'm happy here. This house has 40 years of memories. Frank and I raised Daniel here. It's also full of stairs, outdated wiring, and a furnace that's probably older than my car. Be practical, Margaret. How much longer can you really maintain this place?" Over the next 3 months, the pressure intensified. Every phone call, every visit, every interaction somehow circled back to the basement suite that was being prepared for me. Daniel kept talking about how much easier it would be, how they could keep an eye on me, how I wouldn't have to worry about home maintenance anymore. But it was Vanessa who made it clear what this was really about. "Your house is sitting on prime real estate," she said one afternoon when Daniel was out of earshot. We were at their place, and she was showing me the basement renovations. The space was cold, windowless, with artificial lighting that made everything look gray. "Once you move in here, Daniel can sell your property. The market value has tripled since you bought it. That money could secure all of our futures." "You mean your future," I said quietly. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I mean our family's future, unless you plan to be selfish about this." I should have recognized the threat in those words. I should have understood what she was capable of. But I was still holding on to the hope that my son would protect me, that the little boy I'd raised would remember that I was his mother, not an asset to be liquidated. The final push came on a Tuesday evening in late October. Daniel and Vanessa invited me for dinner. A celebration, they called it. Vanessa was 12 weeks pregnant, and they wanted to share the news with me in person. I arrived at their modern colonial house in Riverside Heights with a gift bag full of baby items I had already started collecting. Despite everything, I was going to be a grandmother. That had to mean something. "Mom!" Daniel greeted me at the door with a hug that felt genuine for the first time in months. Come in, come in. We have so much to talk about." The dining room table was set beautifully. Too beautifully for a casual family dinner. Expensive china, fresh flowers, candles. and in the center, 3 wine glasses and an opened bottle of red wine. "I thought you couldn't drink," I said to Vanessa, gesturing to her stomach. "This is sparkling cider for me," she said, holding up a separate glass. "But I opened something special for you and Daniel. It's a 2015 Bordeaux that's been aging in our cellar. I thought tonight deserved something memorable." We clinked glasses, and I took a long sip. The wine was rich and complex, with an unusual aftertaste that I couldn't quite place. Slightly bitter, almost medicinal. "Is it good?" Vanessa asked, watching me intently. "It's different," I said, trying to be polite. "Very bold." "Finish it," she encouraged. "I opened it specifically for you. It would be a shame to waste it." Throughout dinner, she kept refilling my glass. Every time I set it down, she was there, talking it off, encouraging me to drink more. "Come on, Margaret, live a little. When's the last time you had a nice glass of wine?" I should have been suspicious. I should have noticed how Daniel seemed uncomfortable, how he kept glancing at Vanessa with an expression I couldn't read. But I was caught up in the joy of becoming a grandmother, in the hope that maybe this baby would bring our fractured family back together. By the end of the evening, I'd consumed nearly the entire bottle. My head was swimming as Daniel helped me to my car. "Are you sure you can drive, Mom?" he asked, his voice thick with something that might have been concern or guilt. "I'm fine," I lied, though the world was starting to tilt slightly. "It's only 15 minutes. I'll be careful." I made it home, but barely. By the time I stumbled through my front door, my stomach was churning violently. I attributed it to drinking too much wine. I rarely drank anymore, and a whole bottle on a full stomach was foolish. But by 2 a.m., I knew something was terribly wrong. The abdominal pain was unlike anything I'd ever experienced, cramping that felt like my insides were being twisted and torn. Then came the vomiting, so violent and continuous that I couldn't catch my breath between episodes. My vision blurred. My hands started trembling uncontrollably. I managed to call 911 before I collapsed in my hallway. The next thing I remember was waking up in a hospital bed, with machines beeping around me and an IV line running into my arm. A doctor I didn't recognize was standing beside me, her face grave. "Mrs. Ross, you're very lucky to be alive," she said quietly. "Your neighbor found you unconscious this morning when she came to borrow some sugar. You'd been on the floor for approximately 6 hours. What happened to me?" My throat was raw from vomiting, my voice barely a whisper. The doctor hesitated. "We're running tests, but based on your symptoms and blood work, we believe you've been exposed to a toxic substance, possibly arsenic or another heavy metal poison. Can you think of anything unusual you consumed in the past 24 hours? The wine. The thought hit me like a physical blow. That wine Vanessa had insisted I drank, the entire bottle she'd made sure I finished. "I need you to run a specific test," I said, my hands shaking. "The wine I drank last night, I need you to test for poison in my system. And I need the results in writing." The doctor's expression shifted from concern to something harder. "Mrs. Ross, are you saying you believe someone deliberately poisoned you?" I closed my eyes, feeling tears leak from the corners. "I'm saying my daughter-in-law served me wine from a special bottle, and now I'm here. Please, test everything." Over the next 3 days, while I recovered in that hospital bed, I had plenty of time to think. To remember every interaction with Vanessa, every push to move into that basement suite, every comment about my house being wasted on a single elderly woman. The toxicology report came back on my 4th day in the hospital. Definitive proof of arsenic poisoning in significant quantities. Not enough to kill me immediately, but enough to make me severely ill, to make me seem frail and incapable of living independently. Or maybe it was supposed to kill me, and I'd just been lucky. Daniel came to visit once during my hospital stay. He brought flowers and looked genuinely worried. But when I mentioned the wine, his face went pale. "Mom, that's crazy. Vanessa would never." I interrupted. "Where is she?
Why hasn't your pregnant wife come to check on her mother-in-law who almost died after drinking wine she served? He had no answer for that. But as I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the toxicology report that proved someone had tried to poison me, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront them immediately. I wasn't going to call the police or make accusations I couldn't prove beyond doubt. No, I was going to do something smarter. I was going to wait, watch, and gather evidence. Because if Vanessa thought she could eliminate me like an inconvenient problem, she had severely underestimated this 70-year-old woman. The baby shower was in 3 months, and I had a feeling that would be the perfect time to serve my own special vintage of justice. The first thing I became aware of was the beeping. Steady, rhythmic, mechanical. Then came the smell, that distinct hospital odor of disinfectant and floor wax that no amount of air freshener can quite mask. My mouth felt like I'd been chewing on cotton balls, and when I tried to open my eyes, the fluorescent light stabbed into my brain like ice picks. "Mrs. Whitfield? Eleanor, can you hear me?" The voice was female, professional, concerned. I managed to crack my eyes open enough to see a woman in blue scrubs standing beside my bed. She had kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. "Where?" My voice came out as a croak, barely recognizable as my own. "You're at Willowbrook General Hospital. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, and I've been overseeing your care for the past 3 days. You gave us quite a scare." 3 days? The words didn't make sense. I tried to sit up, but my body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Tubes ran from my arms to bags hanging beside the bed. An oxygen cannula rested in my nose. A heart monitor beeped steadily, tracking my pulse.
3 days? I managed to whisper. Dr. Chen pulled up a chair beside my bed, her expression serious. "Your neighbor, Betty Henderson, found you unconscious in your hallway on Wednesday morning. She'd come over to borrow some sugar for her coffee cake and got worried when you didn't answer the door. She has a key, thankfully." Betty. Sweet, nosy Betty who'd lived next door for 20 years and treated me like the sister she'd never had. Thank God for her nosiness. "You'd been lying there for approximately 6 to 8 hours, based on body temperature and other factors," Dr. Chen continued. "When the paramedics brought you in, you were severely dehydrated. Your blood pressure was dangerously low, and you were experiencing acute renal distress. Your liver enzymes were also elevated significantly." I closed my eyes, trying to remember. The dinner, the wine, the drive home, the bathroom floor. "What happened to me?" I asked, though somewhere deep inside I already knew. Dr. Chen hesitated, and in that pause, I saw the answer in her eyes. She knew something was very wrong about my condition. "Eleanor, your symptoms were consistent with acute toxic ingestion. The vomiting, the abdominal pain, the organ stress, these aren't typical food poisoning symptoms, so we ran a comprehensive toxicology panel." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "The results came back positive for arsenic." The word hung in the air between us like a death sentence. Arsenic. Not food poisoning, not bad wine. Poison. "How much?" I heard myself ask. "Enough to cause severe illness and potentially long-term organ damage if left untreated, but not quite enough to be immediately fatal. Though if Betty hadn't found you when she did, we'd be having a very different conversation." Dr. Chen leaned forward. "Eleanor, your symptoms were consistent with acute toxic ingestion. The arsenic poisoning of this level doesn't happen accidentally. Someone deliberately gave this to you. We're legally required to report this to the police." My mind raced back to that dinner table. Bianca pouring the wine, refilling my glass again and again, watching me drink with those cold, calculating eyes. The unique thing about this particular vintage is the terroir. The soil where the grapes were grown had unusually high mineral content. Mineral content. She literally told me there were minerals in the line, and I'd been too trusting to understand what she meant. I know who did it, I said quietly. Dr. Chen's eyebrows rose. Then you definitely need to speak with Detective Morrison. He's been waiting to interview you since you were admitted. Over the next hour, I gave my statement to a weary-looking detective in his mid-50s who took notes in a small leather notebook and asked questions in a calm, measured voice that suggested he'd heard every terrible story humanity had to offer. I told him about the pressure to sell my house, about Bianca's increasingly aggressive behavior, about the dinner and the wine she'd insisted I drink, about her background in pharmaceutical sales, which would have given her access to and knowledge about various toxic substances. This is a serious accusation, Mrs. Whitfield. You're alleging that your daughter-in-law attempted to murder you, or at minimum, committed aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. I'm alleging that she poisoned me, I said firmly, surprised by the strength in my voice. Whether she intended to kill me or just make me sick enough to seem incapable of living independently, I don't know. But she did this deliberately. The detective closed his notebook. I'll need to interview both your son and daughter-in-law. We'll also need to obtain the wine bottle if it still exists, test its contents. Do you know if they kept it? I shook my head. I have no idea. But Bianca's smart. If she did this intentionally, she's probably already disposed of any evidence. People make mistakes, the detective said, standing. Even smart people. Try to rest, Mrs. Whitfield. We'll get to the bottom of this. After he left, I lay in that hospital bed staring at the ceiling tiles, my mind working through everything that had happened. If Bianca had poisoned me, and I was now certain she had, what had been her endgame? Make me sick enough that I'd seem frail and incompetent, unable to live alone, giving Marcus legal grounds to force me into the basement suite? Or had she actually tried to kill me, planning to blame my death on the natural consequences of an elderly woman living alone? Either way, she'd made a critical error. I'd survived, and now I had proof, documented in medical records and police reports, that someone had deliberately poisoned me. But I also knew that without physical evidence, without that wine bottle or a confession, prosecuting her would be nearly impossible. It would be my word against hers. And Bianca was beautiful, articulate, pregnant, and from a wealthy, connected family. I was a 70-year-old woman who lived alone and might easily be painted as confused or vindictive. I needed more than just my testimony. I needed evidence, hard, undeniable proof that Bianca Moreau had tried to poison me. Marcus came to visit on my 4th day in the hospital. I was sitting up in bed, able to keep down solid food finally, when he appeared in the doorway looking haggard and guilty. Mom, his voice cracked on the word. Jesus, Mom, I'm so sorry. He rushed to my bedside and gripped my hand, and for a moment, I saw my little boy again, the one who'd cried when his goldfish died, who'd hugged me fiercely before his first day of kindergarten, and told me I was his favorite person in the whole world. Marcus! I squeezed his hand, feeling the tears I'd been holding back finally spill over. I could have died.
I know. God, I know. When the hospital called, when they said you were in intensive care. He sat down heavily in the visitor's chair, his face in his hands. What happened? They said something about food poisoning, but the police came to our house asking questions about dinner, about the wine. I watched his face carefully, searching for any sign that he'd known what Bianca had planned. But all I saw was genuine confusion and fear. Marcus, the doctors found arsenic in my system. Someone poisoned me. His head snapped up, eyes wide with shock. What? That's impossible. Who would... He stopped, and I watched the realization dawn across his face. No. No, Mom, you can't possibly think... The wine, Marcus. That special bottle Bianca served me. She made sure I drank almost all of it. She kept refilling my glass, insisting I finish it, and then I drove home and spent hours vomiting, in agony, until I passed out on my hallway floor. Mom, that's insane. Bianca wouldn't. She's not. But his protests sounded weak, even to his own ears, I could tell. Where is she? I asked quietly. Why hasn't your pregnant wife come to visit her mother-in-law who almost died? Marcus looked away, unable to meet my eyes. She's been upset. The police questioning really shook her up, and her doctor said the stress isn't good for the baby. The stress of being accused of attempted murder, you mean? Don't. Marcus stood up abruptly, pacing to the window. Don't say that. Don't accuse her of something so horrible without proof. The proof is in my medical records, the arsenic in my bloodstream, the dinner where she was the only one who handled my wine. It could have been contaminated at the vineyard, or a bad bottle, or... Marcus. I waited until he turned to look at me. Do you really believe that? In your heart, do you truly believe this was an accident? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. My son suspected his wife was capable of this. He just didn't want to face it. I need to go, he said finally, his voice hollow. Bianca's waiting in the car. She didn't want to come up, said it would be too upsetting. I bet she did. He paused at the door, his hand on the frame. Mom, I don't know what to believe right now, but I know Bianca. She's ambitious, yes. She can be cold sometimes, but she's not a murderer. There has to be another explanation. After he left, I lay back against the pillows, exhausted and heartbroken. My son was choosing his wife over me. Even faced with evidence that she'd tried to poison me, he was making excuses, looking for alternative explanations, protecting the woman who'd put me in the hospital. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to wait for the police investigation that might go nowhere. I wasn't going to hope that Marcus would suddenly see the truth about the woman he'd married. I was going to take matters into my own hands. If Bianca Moreau wanted to play games with my life, I would show her that this 70-year-old woman still had some fight left in her. Betty Henderson visited me that afternoon, bustling into my room with a care package of homemade cookies, gossip magazines, and genuine concern. Eleanor Whitfield, you gave me the fright of my life, she said, pulling me into a careful hug that minded the IV lines. Not yet, Betty. Turns out I'm tougher than I look. Betty settled into the visitor's chair, her round face creased with worry. The police came by, asked me all sorts of questions about who'd been visiting you, whether I'd noticed anything unusual. I told them about that daughter-in-law of yours showing up at odd times. My ears perked up. What do you mean by odd times? Well, you know I keep an eye out, not snooping, just being neighborly. Betty had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. But I noticed Bianca had been coming around more in the past few months, sometimes when you weren't even home. I saw her letting herself in with a key once your car was gone. A key. Bianca had a key to my house, and she'd been entering when I wasn't there. Betty, this is important. When did you see her going into my house alone? Betty thought for a moment. Maybe 3 or 4 times over the past couple months. Once was definitely last month, mid-September. I remember because I was putting out my Halloween decorations. She was there for maybe 20 minutes, then left with a box of what looked like papers or files. My financial documents, my medical records, my insurance information, all kept in my home office filing cabinet. Had Bianca been gathering information about my assets, my health, my insurance policies? Did you mention this to the detective? I did. He seemed very interested, took down all the dates I could remember. Betty leaned forward conspiratorially. Eleanor, I've never trusted that woman. Too smooth, you know? Too perfect. Women like that always have something to hide. After Betty left, I asked the nurse for my laptop, which had been brought from home along with some clothes and toiletries. My hands still trembled slightly from the lingering effects of the poisoning, but I managed to log into my email and bank accounts. Everything looked normal at first. But then I noticed something odd in my bank statement.
a transfer of $5,000 from my savings account to my checking account, dated 3 weeks ago. I hadn't made that transfer. I rarely touched my savings, keeping it as an emergency fund that had been slowly growing since Frank's death. I dug deeper, going through statements from the past 6 months. There were 3 similar transfers, all around $5,000, all moved from savings to checking, and each time, within a few days of the transfer, there were large cash withdrawals from the checking account.
Someone had been stealing from me, systematically, carefully, taking amounts that were large enough to matter, but small enough that I might not notice immediately. $15,000 total, nearly a quarter of my savings gone. My hands were shaking as I called my bank's fraud department. The representative who answered was sympathetic, but firm about their policies. Mrs. Whitfield, I understand your concern, but these transactions were all authorized with your correct PIN and account information. They were made from ATMs in your local area during times when you would typically have access. I didn't make them, I insisted. Someone else has my PIN. Do you share your PIN with anyone? Family members who might have access? No, I've never shared it with... I stopped. A memory surfaced. 6 months ago, Bianca had been at my house when I'd paid a plumber who'd fixed my leaky faucet. I'd had to get cash from the ATM down the street. Bianca had driven me, waited in the car, and I'd written my PIN on a piece of paper to remember it because I'd recently changed it and kept forgetting the new number. I'd left that paper in my wallet, which had been in my purse, which had been in Bianca's car. She'd copied my PIN, then used the key Marcus had given her for emergencies to get into my house when I was out, finding my debit card and making withdrawals while I was at the library or the grocery store or my yoga class. I want to file a formal fraud report, I told the representative, and I need all of these transactions investigated. Of course, Mrs. Whitfield, we'll open a case immediately. But I should warn you that if we find the withdrawals were made by someone with legitimate access to your PIN, recovery of the funds may be difficult. After I hung up, I sat in that hospital bed feeling a cold rage building inside me. It wasn't just the poisoning. Bianca had been systematically robbing me for months, stealing my money, gathering my personal information, pressuring me to sell my house, and when I'd refused to cooperate, when I'd been too stubborn to just hand over my independence and my assets, she'd decided to remove me from the equation entirely. The arsenic poisoning wasn't impulsive, it was calculated, part of a long-term plan to either control me or eliminate me. And Marcus had no idea. Or if he did have suspicions, he was choosing not to see them, blinded by love or manipulation or the promise of financial security that my house and savings would provide. I needed help, real help, from someone who understood what I was facing and wouldn't dismiss my concerns as the paranoia of an elderly woman. That's when I thought of Patricia Rosewood. Patricia had been a friend of mine for over 30 years. We'd worked together at Willowbrook Community Hospital back when I was still nursing. She'd retired 5 years ago after a long career that had included a stint as director of the hospital's ethics board. She was sharp, skeptical, and had seen enough family dynamics around end-of-life care to recognize elder abuse when she saw it. I called her that evening and she answered on the second ring. "Eleanor! My God, I heard you were in the hospital. Betty called me. Are you all right?" I told her everything. The pressure campaign about the house, the basement suite, the dinner and the wine, the arsenic poisoning, the stolen money, the key Bianca had used to enter my house without permission, the files she had taken. Patricia listened in silence, and when I finished, she let out a long, low whistle. "Eleanor, this is serious. This isn't just family drama. This is financial exploitation and attempted murder. I know, but the police investigation might take months, and even if they find evidence, prosecution is difficult. It would be my word against hers, and Bianca is young, beautiful, pregnant, and from a wealthy family with expensive lawyers." Patricia finished. "I know the type. I've seen them before, circling around elderly patients with assets, pretending to be concerned family members while they slowly drain bank accounts and pressure people into signing new wills. So what do I do?"
You fight back, Patricia said firmly, but you do it smart. You document everything. You gather evidence. You build a case that's so airtight that even her expensive lawyers can't explain it away. She paused. And you do it fast, before she realizes you're onto her and has time to cover her tracks better. How? First, you get out of that hospital and back home where you can control your environment. Second, you secure all your important documents and change every password and PIN you have. Third, you start creating a paper trail that shows the pattern of her behavior. And fourth, Patricia's voice took on a harder edge. You give her enough rope to hang herself. What do you mean? I mean, you pretend to be weaker than you are. You let her think the poisoning worked, that you're confused and frightened and maybe willing to reconsider the basement suite. You draw her in, make her feel confident, and while she's gloating over her victory, you gather evidence of everything she's been doing. It was risky. It meant pretending to be a victim, playing weak, letting Bianca think she had won. Everything in me rebelled against the idea. But as I lay in that hospital bed, IVs in my arms and poison still working its way out of my system, I realized Patricia was right. I couldn't fight Bianca head-on. She had youth, money, social connections, and my son's loyalty on her side. A direct confrontation would only result in me being painted as a bitter, paranoid old woman. But if I was clever, if I was patient, if I played the long game the way she'd been doing, I might be able to expose her for what she really was before she had a chance to finish what she had started.
Tell me what to do, I said to Patricia. Tell me how to build this case. Over the next hour, Patricia laid out a plan. It was meticulous, devious, and required me to be better at manipulation than I'd ever thought myself capable of being. But by the time we hung up, I had a roadmap forward. Step 1. Get discharged from the hospital and return home, but make sure everyone knew I was still quite weak and disoriented from the poisoning. Step 2. Install hidden security cameras in my house, in the kitchen, living room, and home office. Betty's nephew owned a security company and could help me do it discreetly. Step 3. Set up a separate bank account that Bianca didn't know about and transfer most of my remaining savings there. Leave just enough in the original account to make continued theft possible and trackable. Step 4. Keep a detailed journal documenting every interaction with Bianca and Marcus, every suspicious occurrence, every piece of evidence I gathered. Step 5. Reach out to Marcus, seeming confused and frightened, suggesting that maybe I had been foolish to resist the basement suite idea. Draw Bianca in by seeming to capitulate. And step 6, the most crucial one, watch and wait for her to make a mistake. Because Patricia was right about one thing. People who thought they were winning got careless, and when Bianca got careless, I would be ready. I was discharged from the hospital on a gray, drizzly morning 1 week after I'd been admitted. Dr. Chen gave me strict instructions about follow-up care, kidney function monitoring, and watching for signs of long-term arsenic exposure effects. She also gave me something else, a sealed envelope containing a complete copy of my medical records, toxicology reports, and her professional opinion that my poisoning had been deliberate. "Keep these somewhere safe," she said quietly, pressing the envelope into my hands. "If you need them for legal purposes, they're already documented and certified. No one can claim they were altered or fabricated." Betty drove me home, fussing over me the entire way. She'd already been to my house and cleaned, restocked my refrigerator, and, per my whispered request during one of her hospital visits, had her nephew install 4 hidden security cameras while making it look like he was just doing a routine home safety inspection. "They're motion-activated, Betty. Feed goes to an app on your phone and stores in the cloud. Even if someone finds the cameras and destroys them, you'll still have the footage." My little house looked the same as always, but it felt different now, violated. Bianca had been here, uninvited, going through my things. The thought made my skin crawl, but I pushed down the revulsion and focused on the plan. I had work to do. The first call I made was to Marcus.
I made sure my voice sounded weak, tremulous, confused. "Marcus, honey, I'm home from the hospital. Mom, how are you feeling? I wanted to come pick you up, but Bianca said you'd probably want Betty instead." He trailed off guiltily. I'm very tired, sweetheart, and scared. The doctor said I was poisoned, but I don't understand how or why. And I keep thinking, what if it happens again? What if I'm not safe here alone?" He heard me suck in a breath. This was what he'd been waiting for, me to admit I was vulnerable, that I needed help. "Mom, you're not safe there alone. That's what we've been trying to tell you. Please, please consider the basement suite. It's ready for you. We can move you in this weekend if you want." Maybe you're right. I let my voice break convincingly. "I just don't want to be a burden to you and Bianca." "You're not a burden." But even as he said it, I could hear the relief in his voice. Finally, his difficult mother was seeing reason. "I'll talk to Bianca tonight. We can come visit tomorrow, show you the space, talk about logistics." "That would be nice, Marcus. Thank you. I love you." "I love you too, Mom." After I hung up, I felt sick to my stomach. I'd just lied to my son, manipulated him using the same tactics Bianca used. But what choice did I have? If I wanted to expose what she'd been doing, I needed to make her feel safe enough to continue. Sure enough, Marcus called back within an hour. "Mom, Bianca and I will come up tomorrow at noon. She's really pleased that you're reconsidering. She said to tell you that we're family and family takes care of each other." Family takes care of each other. The words would have been sweet if they weren't coming from a woman who tried to poison me. "That's lovely, dear. I'll see you tomorrow." That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with Patricia, who'd come over with takeout containers of soup and a bottle of wine that I politely declined. We went over the plan one more time. "Remember," Patricia said, "you're confused but compliant, weak but willing. You don't accuse her of anything. You don't mention the money or the key or the files she took. You're just a frightened old woman who realizes she can't live alone anymore." "I hate this," I admitted, pretending to be helpless. "I know, but Eleanor, this woman tried to kill you. Or at the very least, she tried to make you sick enough that no one would question putting you in a facility. You need evidence to stop her, and the only way to get that evidence is to make her think she's won." Patricia was right. I knew she was right, but it still felt like swallowing poison, letting Bianca think she'd broken me, that her plan had worked. That night, alone in my house with the cameras recording silently in the corners of the room, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had happened. My daughter-in-law had poisoned me. My son was either complicit or willfully blind. My home had been violated, my money had been stolen, and now I had to pretend to be grateful for the opportunity to move into their basement and give up the last shreds of my independence.
But as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt something else stirring beneath the fear and sadness. Something harder and colder. Rage. Bianca Moreau had underestimated me. She'd seen a 70-year-old woman and assumed I was weak, easily controlled, ready to be victimized. She'd bet that I would either die from the arsenic or be too frightened and confused to fight back. She'd been wrong. And by the time I was done gathering evidence, by the time I was ready to reveal everything she'd done, she would realize that the burden she'd tried to eliminate was far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. Tomorrow, Marcus and Bianca would come to my house. They would show me pictures of the basement suite. They would talk about move-in dates and selling my house and how wonderful it would be for us all to be together as a family. And I would smile and nod and play my part. But the cameras would be recording, the journal would be documenting, and the trap would be slowly, carefully closing around Bianca Moreau. She wanted to play games with my life? Fine. But this was one game she was going to lose. They arrived exactly at noon, just as Marcus had promised.
I watched through my front window as Bianca's silver Audi pulled into my driveway, the autumn sun glinting off its polished surface. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst through my chest, but I forced myself to take slow, deep breaths. This was theater now. I had to give the performance of my life. I opened the door before they could knock, making sure to grip the door frame as if I needed the support. The cameras were reporting. Everything that happened from this moment forward would be documented. Marcus, Bianca, I let my voice waver slightly. Thank you for coming. Marcus immediately stepped forward and pulled me into a gentle hug. Mom, you look so thin. Have you been eating? I try, but my stomach is still sensitive from whatever happened. I glanced at Bianca, who stood on my porch in an elegant cream-colored coat, one hand resting protectively on her small baby bump. She looked radiant, healthy, victorious. Eleanor. Her voice was warm honey, sweet and smooth. I'm so relieved to see you home. We've been desperately worried. Desperately worried? The woman who'd poisoned me was standing on my doorstep claiming concern? I wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, to call her out for the monster she was. Instead, I smiled weakly and stepped aside. Please, come in. I made tea. The three of us settled in my small living room, the same room where I'd raised Marcus, where Frank and I had celebrated anniversaries and Christmas mornings. Now it felt like a stage set, artificial and strange. Bianca sat in Frank's old recliner, the one I'd kept exactly as he'd left it, without asking permission. Something about that casual appropriation of my dead husband's chair made rage flare hot in my chest, but I swallowed it down and poured tea with hands I deliberately let shake. So, I said, settling carefully onto the couch, tell me about this basement suite. I think I'm ready to listen now. The relief that washed over Marcus's face was almost painful to see. My son genuinely believed he was rescuing me, that moving me into their basement was an act of love rather than control. Bianca, however, had a different expression. It was subtle, just a slight curve of her lips, a glitter in her dark eyes, but I recognized it. Triumph. She'd won, and she knew it. We're so glad you're being reasonable about this, Eleanor, Bianca said, pulling out her phone and swiping to a photo gallery. We've really created something special for you. She held out her phone, and I made myself lean forward to look. The images showed a finished basement space with recessed lighting, pale gray walls, and modern fixtures. There was a bedroom with a hospital-style adjustable bed, a small sitting area with a flat-screen TV, and a kitchenette with a microwave and mini-fridge. It looked like a very expensive prison cell. The bathroom has a walk-in shower with grab bars and a built-in seat, Marcus added, his enthusiasm growing. And there's an emergency call button system connected directly to our bedroom. If you need anything at night, you just press the button. It's perfect for someone who needs monitoring, Bianca said, and there was the slightest emphasis on that last word, monitoring. Not helping, not caring for, monitoring. It looks lovely, I lied, taking the phone and scrolling through more images. You've both put so much work into this. $85,000 worth of work, Bianca said, her voice taking on a harder edge. Plus the ongoing costs of having you live with us. We're doing this out of love, Eleanor. We hope you appreciate the sacrifice we're making. Sacrifice? She was calling it a sacrifice to steal my independence and my home while positioning herself to control my assets. I do appreciate it, I said quietly. I've been thinking a lot while I was in the hospital about mortality, about being alone, about what happened with the poisoning. I let my voice break convincingly. The doctor said if Betty hadn't found me when she did, I would have died. And all I could think was, what if it happens again? What if next time there's no one to save me? Marcus reached over and took my hand. That's exactly why we want you with us, Mom. So you're never alone. So you're safe. When were you thinking I might move? I asked, and I could see Bianca's eyes light up at the question. I wasn't asking if I would move, but when. The battle was over in her mind.
As soon as possible, Bianca said quickly. The movers could have your furniture packed up and transferred within a week. And then we can list this house immediately. The market is very hot right now. We should be able to get top dollar if we move quickly. What about my things? I gestured around the living room at the 43 years of accumulated life. All my photographs, Frank's books, the china cabinet from my mother. We'll find room for what's important, Bianca said dismissively. But Eleanor, you have to be realistic. The basement suite is cozy, but it's not huge. You'll need to downsize significantly. Donate most of the furniture, sell or give away at least half of your possessions. Think of it as liberating. Do you really need all this stuff weighing you down? She wanted me to get rid of everything. Every photograph, every memory, every physical reminder of the life I'd built. She wanted me stripped down to nothing, completely dependent on her charity. I suppose you're right, I said softly. It is a lot of stuff for one person. Over the next hour, they walked me through their plan for my life. Bianca had it all mapped out with the precision of a military campaign. The house would be sold, with the proceeds going into a managed account that Marcus would oversee for my benefit. My monthly pension and Social Security checks would be direct deposited into a joint account that Bianca would monitor to help with budgeting. My car would be sold, since I wouldn't need it living in Boston. They would drive me anywhere I needed to go. Every detail was designed to strip away my autonomy, my resources, my ability to leave or resist. And through it all, I nodded and agreed and played the role of the grateful, confused old woman who was so relieved to finally be taken care of. When they finally left, with Marcus hugging me goodbye and Bianca reminding me to rest and let us handle everything, I closed the door and stood in my hallway, shaking with suppressed rage and fear. The cameras had captured everything. Bianca's casual cruelty, her eagerness to liquidate my assets, the control she was establishing. But was it enough? Would anyone watching that footage see what I saw? A predator closing in on her prey? I needed more. I needed proof of the poisoning, evidence of the financial theft, documentation of a pattern that couldn't be dismissed or explained away. That evening, Patricia came over with Chinese takeout and a laptop. "Let me see what you got today," she said, setting up at my kitchen table. I pulled up the security camera footage on my phone and transferred it to her laptop. We watched the entire visit, Patricia making notes and occasionally pausing to replay certain sections. "Her body language is fascinating," Patricia said, freezing the video on a shot of Bianca sitting in Frank's chair. "Look at how she's positioned herself. It's the power seat in the room. And the way she touches her stomach when she's making demands. Classic manipulation. She's using the pregnancy as a shield, making herself untouchable." "Is any of this admissible as evidence?" I asked. "In a civil case, maybe. But for criminal charges," Patricia shook her head. "You need more. You need to catch her in an actual criminal act. The financial theft is good, but she'll claim she had permission or that Marcus authorized it. The poisoning is the real crime, but without physical evidence, the wine bottle, her fingerprints on something, a recording of her admitting it, it's still just your word against hers." "So what do I do?" Patricia was quiet for a moment, thinking. "You mentioned she's been entering your house when you're not home. What if we set up a situation where she does it again, but this time we're ready for her?" "How?" "You tell Marcus and Bianca that you're going to Boston next week for a follow-up appointment with a specialist, someone who can monitor your recovery from arsenic poisoning. Tell them you'll be gone all day, maybe even overnight. Make it sound like you're scared and clingy, asking if you can stay in their guest room."
I could see where she was going with this. And while they think I'm in Boston, you're actually here, watching and recording. If Bianca takes the bait and comes to your house while she thinks you're gone, we see what she does. Maybe she's looking for evidence of her own. Medical records, bank statements, anything that might prove you're still competent and don't need to be in that basement. Or maybe, Patricia's eyes hardened, maybe she comes to plant evidence of your declining mental state. Either way, you catch her in the act. It was risky. If Bianca suspected a trap, she wouldn't come. But if she did take the bait, we might finally get the evidence we needed. I'll call Marcus tomorrow, set it up. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed, listening to the old house settling around me, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. When had Bianca first decided I was an obstacle to be removed? Had it been a gradual thing? Or was there a specific moment when she'd looked at me and seen not a person, but a problem? I thought about the baby she was carrying, my grandchild, and felt a complicated mix of emotions. Part of me was excited to be a grandmother, but another part wondered what kind of mother Bianca would be. Would she teach her child that elderly people were burdens? That family was only valuable for what it could provide? Around 2 a.m., unable to sleep, I got up and went to my home office. The room was small, barely more than a converted closet, but it held my filing cabinet with all my important documents. I opened the drawer that contained my financial records and started going through them more carefully. That's when I found it, a document I didn't remember signing.
It was a power of attorney form, dated 3 months ago, giving Marcus Whitfield full authority to make financial and medical decisions on my behalf in the event I became incapacitated. My hands started shaking as I stared at the paper. The signature looked like mine, close enough that someone who didn't know better might not question it. But I knew I hadn't signed this. The date was July 15th, a Tuesday when I'd been at my yoga class, followed by lunch with Bae. I'd been gone from the house for nearly 5 hours. Bianca had been here. She'd used her key to enter my home, found this document, probably printed it herself, and forged my signature. She'd been planning this for months, setting up the legal framework to take control of my finances and my medical care. With this document, if I became incapacitated or even just seemed confused enough, Marcus could authorize my placement in the basement suite. He could sell my house without my consent. He could make medical decisions I might not agree with. This wasn't just theft or attempted murder. This was a comprehensive plan to strip me of my legal autonomy. I carefully photographed the document from every angle, making sure to capture the date and the signature. Then I put it back exactly where I'd found it. If Bianca knew I'd discovered the forgery, she might panic and do something desperate. The next morning, I called Marcus as soon as I thought he'd be awake. "Mom, is everything okay?" He sounded worried, probably expecting bad news. "I'm fine, honey. Well, not fine, exactly. I have to go to Boston next Wednesday for a follow-up appointment. Dr. Chen referred me to a specialist at Massachusetts General who deals with arsenic poisoning recovery." I let my voice quaver. "I'm a little nervous about the drive and being in the city alone all day." "Mom, of course you're nervous. Don't even think about driving. Bianca and I will take you. What time is the appointment?" "That's the thing. It's at 8 a.m., and the doctor said I might need to be there most of the day for various tests. I don't want to disrupt your whole day, but I was wondering—" I let the sentence trail off vulnerably. "Whatever you need, Mom. Could I maybe stay at your house Tuesday night? Then we could go to the hospital together Wednesday morning, and if the tests take a long time, I could just rest at your place until they're done. I know it's an imposition." "It's not an imposition at all. That's a great idea. You can stay in the guest room, and we'll drive you to MGH and back. In fact, this will be a perfect chance for you to see the basement suite in person. Get a feel for the space." "Perfect. Thank you, Marcus. I feel so much better knowing I won't be alone." After I hung up, I immediately called Patricia with the burner phone she'd given me. My regular phone might be monitored, she'd warned. "It's set. I'm supposedly going to Boston next Tuesday night, staying overnight and spending all day Wednesday at the hospital."
Perfect. So Tuesday afternoon and evening, your house will be empty. If Bianca is going to make a move, that's when she'll do it. The next few days crawled by. I went through the motions of packing a small overnight bag, making it obvious to anyone who might be watching that I was preparing for my Boston trip. I mentioned it to Betty in a voice loud enough that it might carry if someone was listening at my door. I even called the library to say I'd miss my Tuesday volunteer shift because I had a medical appointment. All the while, I felt like I was living in a spy movie, paranoid and hyper-vigilant, wondering if Bianca was somehow watching me, if she suspected the trap being set for her. On Monday evening, Detective Morrison called. "Mrs. Whitfield, I wanted to update you on the investigation. We interviewed your son and daughter-in-law about the dinner." Mrs. Moreau was very cooperative, provided us with detailed information about the meal, even offered to help us locate the wine bottle. Did she? I tried to keep my voice neutral. Unfortunately, she said the bottle was thrown out with the recycling that week. The recycling had already been collected before we could retrieve it. Very convenient timing. So there's no physical evidence. Not of the wine itself, no, but we did get a warrant to search their home based on your testimony and the medical evidence. We found something interesting in Mrs. Moreau's home office. My heart started pounding. What? A bottle of arsenic trioxide, sold as rat poison. It was in a locked cabinet in her office, along with various pharmaceutical samples from her work. When we asked about it, she said it was for rodent problems at the house. But here's the thing. There was no record of rodent infestation with any pest control company, and the bottle had been opened and used. Can you prove she used it to poison me? Detective Morrison sighed. That's the challenge. Possessing rat poison isn't illegal. Using it isn't illegal if you're actually dealing with rodents. We'd need to prove she put it in your wine, and without that wine bottle or a witness who saw her do it, it's circumstantial at best. So she's going to get away with it. I didn't say that. We're building a case, Mrs. Whitfield. It takes time. Financial Crimes Division is also looking into the unauthorized account access you reported. But I have to be honest with you, people like Mrs. Moreau, who are intelligent and careful and come from wealthy families with good lawyers, they're difficult to prosecute. We need airtight evidence.
After he hung up, I sat in my darkening living room, feeling the weight of the situation. The police knew Bianca was guilty. I knew she was guilty. But knowing and proving were two different things. That's when my email pinged with a new message. The sender was an address I didn't recognize. truthteller2024@protonmail.com. The subject line read, "You need to see this." My hand hovered over the mouse, uncertain. It could be spam or a virus or some kind of phishing attempt, but something made me click. The email contained no text, just a video file attachment. I downloaded it, my heart racing, and pressed play. The video was grainy, shot from what looked like a cell phone camera. The location was a restaurant or bar. I could see other tables in the background, hear the murmur of conversation and clinking glasses. The camera was focused on a table where two women sat, Bianca and someone I didn't recognize, an elegant woman in her 40s with sleek blonde hair. The audio was muffled, but I could make out parts of their conversation. "I can't believe it's taking this long," the blonde woman was saying. "I thought you said she'd be gone by now." Bianca's laugh was bitter. "The old bat is tougher than she looks. I gave her enough arsenic to kill a horse. Well, enough to make her seriously ill anyway. But she survived. Now I have to pivot to plan B, which is make her think she's losing her mind, plant evidence of confusion, document instances of forgetfulness, get Marcus convinced she's declining. With the power of attorney I forged, he can have her declared incompetent and commit her if necessary. Jesus, Bianca, you forged legal documents? What else was I supposed to do? She wouldn't sign anything voluntarily. The stubborn bitch actually thinks she can keep living in that house, sitting on $500,000 in property value, while Marcus and I struggle with our mortgage? That money is Marcus's inheritance. It should be ours now, not locked away in some old woman's estate. What if she tells someone about the poisoning? Who's gonna believe her? She's 70 years old, lives alone, probably confused from all the medications. I'm a respected pharmaceutical sales rep from a good family. Marcus is established in his career. We're the picture of respectability. Bianca leaned back in her chair, supremely confident. Besides, even if someone did believe her, they'd never prove it. I was very careful. The blonde woman raised her glass. To careful planning, to getting what we deserve, Bianca corrected, clinking her glass against her friend's. The video ended.
I sat frozen, staring at the black screen. This was it. This was the confession I needed. Bianca admitting to the poisoning, to the forgery, to the plan to have me declared incompetent, all recorded on video. But who had sent it to me, and how had they gotten this footage? I called Patricia immediately, my hands shaking so badly I could barely dial. I just got sent a video, I said. Patricia, it's Bianca confessing to everything, the poisoning, the forgery, the plan to have me committed. It's all there. Send it to me right now, Patricia said, her voice sharp with urgency. And don't touch anything else. Don't respond to that email. Don't tell anyone you have this. I forwarded the video to Patricia's secure email, then sat back, my mind racing. Someone out there knew what Bianca had done. Someone had recorded her confession and sent it to me. But why? Who would do that? Patricia called back 10 minutes later. Eleanor, this is gold. This is the evidence you need. But we have to verify it's authentic before we can use it. I'm going to send it to someone I know who does digital forensics. If this video hasn't been tampered with, if it's genuinely Bianca's voice and face, this could be what ends her. But who sent it? I don't know, but whoever it is, they're on your side. Maybe someone who knows Bianca, who's seen what she's really like. Maybe a coworker or a friend who got tired of watching her manipulate people. Patricia paused. Or maybe it's the blonde woman in the video. Maybe she has a conscience after all. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept replaying that video in my mind, hearing Bianca's casual cruelty, her cold calculation about how to destroy me. The woman my son had married, the mother of my future grandchild, was a monster. And in 2 days, I was supposed to go to their house, sleep under their roof, pretend to trust them. The thought made my skin crawl. But I also knew this was it. The end game was approaching. With the video evidence, with the pattern of financial theft, with the forged power of attorney and Detective Morrison's investigation, we were building an airtight case. Bianca Moreau had tried to eliminate me. She'd poisoned me, stolen from me, planned to have me declared incompetent and locked away. But she made one critical mistake. She underestimated me. And now, with evidence mounting and traps being set, her carefully constructed plan was about to collapse around her. Tuesday morning arrived cold and gray, the Vermont autumn turning bitter with the promise of winter. I loaded my overnight bag into my car, making sure Betty saw me leaving, waving goodbye as if I were really going to Boston for medical tests. Instead, I drove to Patricia's house 3 miles away, where we'd set up a command center in her living room. Multiple monitors showed feeds from the security cameras in my house. My phone was positioned to look like I was in Boston. Patricia's tech-savvy nephew had helped us set up location spoofing.
Now we wait, Patricia said, settling into her chair with a cup of coffee. If Bianca takes the bait, we'll know within the next few hours. I sat beside her, watching my empty house on the monitors, and prepared for whatever was about to unfold. The trap was set. All Bianca had to do was walk into it. We didn't have to wait long. At 2:47 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon, Bianca's silver Audi pulled into my driveway. "There she is," Patricia whispered, though we were alone in her living room 3 miles away. "Right on schedule." I watched the monitors as Bianca got out of her car, looked around carefully to make sure no one was watching, and walked up to my front door. She pulled out a key, the one Marcus had given her for emergencies, and let herself in. The cameras captured everything in crystal clear high definition. Bianca moved through my house with the confidence of someone who'd done this many times before. She went straight to my home office and started rifling through my filing cabinet. I watched as she pulled out documents, photographed them with her phone, and carefully replaced them. "She's documenting your finances," Patricia said, making notes, building her case for why the house needs to be sold. But then Bianca did something unexpected. She pulled a small notebook from her purse and began placing items around my house. A coffee mug in the refrigerator, my reading glasses in the bathroom medicine cabinet, and my house keys in the kitchen junk drawer. "What is she doing?" I asked. Patricia's eyes widened. "She's staging evidence, making it look like you're confused, putting things in wrong places. She's going to discover these later and use them to prove you're mentally declining." Rage burned through me as I watched this woman manipulate my home, creating a false narrative of my incompetence. But I forced myself to stay calm. We were recording everything, every illegal entry, every planted item, every calculated move. Bianca spent 45 minutes in my house. Before she left, she stopped in my living room and looked directly at one of the hidden cameras, not knowing it was there, just staring in that direction. The expression on her face was chilling. Cold, satisfied, completely devoid of empathy. She thought she'd won. After Bianca left, Patricia and I reviewed every second of footage, making backup copies and uploading them to secure cloud storage. Combined with the confession video, the forged power of attorney, the financial theft evidence, and Detective Morrison's investigation, we finally had everything we needed. "It's time," Patricia said. "Time to end this." I called Detective Morrison and told him everything. The video confession, the breaking and entering we'd just recorded, the staged evidence of mental decline. He arrived at Patricia's house within an hour, watched all the footage, and made a phone call I couldn't quite hear. When he hung up, his expression was grim but satisfied. "Mrs. Whitfield, I'm getting a warrant for Mrs. Moreau's arrest. Breaking and entering, elder abuse, attempted murder, fraud, forgery, we've got her on multiple felonies. The video confession alone would be enough, but with everything else, she's done." "What about Marcus?" I asked quietly. "My son, did he know?" Detective Morrison's expression softened. "From what we can tell, no. He seems to have been manipulated as much as you were. Mrs. Moreau is very skilled at making people see what she wants them to see." That evening, I finally went to Boston, but not as a frightened, confused old woman seeking medical care. I went as myself, strong and determined, with Patricia driving and Detective Morrison's assurances that Bianca would be arrested within 24 hours. Marcus called me while we were on the road, his voice confused and worried. "Mom, where are you? We expected you here by now for your appointment tomorrow." "Change of plans, sweetheart. Something came up. I'll explain everything soon." "Is everything okay? You sound different." "Everything is fine, Marcus. Better than fine. I'll call you tomorrow." 3 weeks later, I received an embossed invitation in the mail. Bianca was having her baby shower. A lavish affair at an upscale hotel in Cambridge with 75 guests, a catered lunch, and a designer cake. The invitation had been sent before her arrest, before the charges were filed, before her perfect world began crumbling. The baby shower was still happening, despite everything. Marcus had called me, his voice broken, explaining that Bianca's lawyer had gotten her released on bail. The trial was months away, and Bianca was insisting the baby shower go forward as planned, a show of normalcy, a declaration that she wouldn't be intimidated by false accusations. "Mom, I don't know what to believe anymore," Marcus had said during one of our long, painful conversations. "The police say she tried to kill you. She says it's all a misunderstanding, that you're confused, that the evidence is manufactured. I'm so lost." "Then come to the baby shower," I'd said quietly, "and I'll show you the truth." Now, standing in front of my mirror on the morning of the shower, I barely recognized myself. I'd had my hair professionally styled, bought a new dress in deep burgundy that made me look strong rather than frail, and applied makeup with Patricia's help. I looked like someone who couldn't be dismissed or overlooked. I looked like someone who'd survived. Patricia drove me to the hotel, both of us silent with anticipation. In my purse was a tablet loaded with every piece of evidence we'd gathered. The security footage, the confession video, the forged documents, Detective Morrison's reports, and something else. The toxicology report from my hospitalization, professionally printed and bound.
The baby shower was being held in an elegant ballroom on the hotel's second floor. When Patricia and I walked in, the room fell silent. 75 people, Bianca's friends, Marcus's colleagues, various family members, all turned to stare at me. Bianca stood near the gift table, radiant in a flowing pink dress that showed off her 6-month pregnancy. Her face went white when she saw me, but she recovered quickly, plastering on a bright smile. Eleanor, what a surprise! I didn't think you'd be able to make it. I wouldn't miss my grandchild's baby shower for anything, I said clearly, my voice carrying across the silent room. We need to talk, Bianca. All of us. Marcus appeared at his wife's side, looking haggard and torn. Mom, maybe this isn't the best time. It's the perfect time. I walked to the front of the room, Patricia beside me, because everyone here should know exactly who they're celebrating. Bianca's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the cold calculation underneath. Eleanor, you're clearly unwell. Marcus, please take your mother outside before she embarrasses herself. I'm not going anywhere. I pulled out the tablet and connected it to the room's projection system. Patricia's tech-savvy nephew had taught me how. I want everyone here to see something. You can't. This is my baby shower. Bianca's voice had risen to a near shriek. This is the truth, I said, and pressed play. The video filled the ballroom speakers, clear and damning. I gave her enough arsenic to kill a horse. Well, enough to make her seriously ill, anyway. Gasps rippled through the crowd. People pulled out their phones, some recording, others texting frantically. Marcus stood frozen, staring at the screen with an expression of absolute horror. The video continued, Bianca's casual cruelty on full display. Make her think she's losing her mind, plant evidence of confusion. With the power of attorney I forged, he can have her declared incompetent. When it ended, the silence was deafening. Bianca's face had gone from white to red, her hands clenched into fists. That video is fake. It's been doctored. She manufactured all of this because she's bitter and jealous. It's been verified by digital forensic experts, I said calmly. But if anyone has doubts, I have more. I showed the security footage of Bianca breaking into my house, planting evidence, rifling through my documents. I showed the bank records proving she'd stolen $15,000. I showed the forged power of attorney with handwriting analysis proving it wasn't my signature. And finally, I held up the toxicology report. This is what your daughter-in-law did to me, I said, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. She poisoned me with arsenic. I almost died, and she did it because she wanted my house, my money, my life, and I was in the way. Marcus had sunk into a chair, his head in his hands. Around us, guests were gathering their things and leaving, shooting disgusted looks at Bianca. Her carefully constructed facade was crumbling in real time. Marcus, Bianca said desperately, reaching for him. Baby, please, don't listen to her. She's confused. She's manipulative. I would never. Don't. Marcus's voice was hollow. Don't say another word. He looked at me, his eyes red and devastated. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have believed you. I should have protected you. Instead, His voice broke. I helped her. I pressured you about the house. I took her side. I'm so sorry. I crossed the room and pulled my son into my arms, both of us crying. You were manipulated, Marcus. She's very good at it. But now you know the truth. Bianca stood alone near the gift table, surrounded by unopened presents and half-eaten cake, her baby shower in ruins. The mask had finally fallen completely, revealing the cold, calculating woman underneath. You'll regret this, she hissed at me. I'll fight these charges. I'll make sure everyone knows you're a vindictive old woman who... Mrs. Moreau, Detective Morrison walked into the ballroom, flanked by two uniformed officers. Your bail has been revoked based on new evidence of witness tampering. You need to come with us. As they led her out in handcuffs past the shocked remaining guests and the hotel staff, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. The trial took place 4 months later. Bianca's expensive lawyers tried everything, claiming confusion, arguing the video was inadmissible, suggesting I had dementia and had fabricated the entire story. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts: attempted murder, elder abuse, fraud, forgery, breaking and entering, and theft. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison. Marcus filed for divorce while she was awaiting trial. The baby, my granddaughter, was born 2 weeks after Bianca's sentencing.
Marcus named her Eleanor Francis, after me and after Frank. She has my eyes and Marcus's sensitive heart. I didn't move into the basement suite. Instead, Marcus sold the Cambridge house and moved back to Vermont, buying a property 10 minutes from mine. We see each other several times a week. He's learning to be a single father, and I'm learning to be a grandmother. The relationship we'd lost is slowly being rebuilt, one honest conversation at a time. The anonymous person who sent me that confession video never revealed themselves. I've wondered many times who it might have been. A friend of Bianca's who had a conscience, a coworker who had witnessed her manipulation, or perhaps the blonde woman in the video who'd eventually felt guilty. Whoever they were, they saved my life.
Betty still checks on me daily, though now it's purely social rather than welfare checks. Patricia and I have become closer than ever, meeting for coffee and yoga and long walks where we dissect true crime podcasts and compare them to my real-life experience. My house is still mine. My independence is still intact. And when I look in the mirror now, I see a survivor. Someone who refused to be eliminated, who fought back against a predator, who proved that being 70 years old doesn't mean being helpless. Sometimes Marcus asks me how I found the strength to do what I did, to set the traps, gather the evidence, and expose Bianca in such a public way. I tell him the truth. I found strength because I had to. When someone tries to take everything from you, you either surrender or you fight. I chose to fight. And as I sit in my cozy living room holding my granddaughter Eleanor Francis while my son makes us dinner in the kitchen I've cooked in for 43 years, I know I made the right choice. Bianca Moreau tried to serve me poisoned wine, tried to make me nothing more than the burden that needed to be eliminated. But the only thing that got eliminated was her freedom. And I'm still here, still strong, still standing in the home I fought so hard to keep. Now I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my situation? Have you ever dealt with someone who tried to manipulate or control you? Comment below and let me know your thoughts. And if this story resonated with you, please share it so others can be warned about the signs of elder abuse and manipulation. Thank you for following my story to the end. Remember, you're never too old to fight for your dignity, your rights, and your life. Stay strong and take care of each other.